Now for a review of what's making the headlines in the papers this morning, I'm joined in the studio by Dr. Austin Maho, lecturer at the International Institute of Journalism, Abuja. Good morning, Dr. Austin.
yeah, Yolanda, good morning.
How are you today?
Yeah, nice to see you.
Likewise. Let's look at the papers this morning. Okay. Starting off with this day, we have, with projected $12 billion annual remittance, CBN launches non-resident BVN to expand financial access for Nigerians in diaspora. Below that, we have PDP denies Anyao signed a number of forms despite contrary evidence at INEC. But the headline we'll be looking at today is Lamido to Tinubu. Pay Abiola's family 45 billion naira owed him to bring closure to June 12th. Dr. Austin, what do you have to say about this headline?
You know, when I saw that story yesterday, during the book launch of former governor of Jigawa State, Sule Lamido, and his colleague, former minister of Foreign Affairs during the Olusegun Obasanjo administration. It was like a bolt out of the blue. Nobody expected that. You are bringing an issue of the 70s to the
yes, to 2025.
To current dispensation.
That's
more
right.
So when it is your book launch. And we expected that since it was a book launch on himself and his, political odyssey in Nigeria, one would have expected that the focus should be on him. So he managed to divert attention from himself by, bringing up that issue. And if you look at how the paper captured it, it became the main issue of the day. And people are at a loss where he thinks the federal government can get 45 billion from at this point in time to bring a closure to Abiola June 12 saga, which to me, the federal government, successive administration from the Buhari administration and equally the current administration of Bola Ahmed Tinubu, I think they've done enough to bring closure to the June 12 saga, especially declaring Abiola the posthumously as the winner of the June 12 presidential election, and equally by granting him the honorary title of GCON, which is Grand Commander of the Order of the Niger, the highest title in the land.
That's right.
And equally declaring June 12 as a national holiday. I think Nigeria as a country, with all that, the memory of June 12 is healthy as well. And I don't think at this point in time we should be talking about pay back to who? The family of the late. A lot of people may not agree with me, but I just felt that it was a bolt out of the blue, and I don't think there's any closure over what has been closed. The issue of June 12 have been closed, and in my mind, we should move on as a nation and learn the lesson of June 12, which is people have declared as a watershed in the political history of this country. We should pay attention now, because I listened to your headline as recorded in this day. We should pay attention now to the political situation in the country and what lies ahead of us in 2027. And of course, look at the controversy in the polity. Look at the crisis in the electoral reform process. Are we ready for 2027, the next election cycle? Look at the crisis in the PDP, the simulated crisis, especially as it has to do with the position of the national chairman, which I think is being simulated to weaken the PDP. Because everybody knows that Samuel Enyawu is the national secretary of the PDP. So why create a crisis over a tenured office that will lapse by December? What's the need? I don't see it. So that's why I call it a simulated crisis within the leading opposition political party in order to weaken it. Whereas we are supposed to have an effective opposition in order to be able to provide an alternative, to the ruling APC administration. I think that should be the focus. And I think that's what, those who spoke yesterday during the book launch should focus on. Focus on our current trajectory as a country. What is happening? How do we improve on what we need to do as a country to move forward, rather than going back to events of ITT and the 70s.
Very well stated. And with that, let's look at that headline once again for the PDP denies Anyao signed a number of forms despite contrary evidence at INEC. Now, some of the riders there say Embattle's secretary insists he autographed the nomination forms. PDP in intensive care has 50% chance of survival, declares ex-Benue Governor Suswam. What do you think is the way forward with this type of headline?
With the PDP?
Yes.
With the PDP, no, I have always maintained that as a country we need an effective opposition in order to be able to talk about good governance. And, you know, when you have an effective opposition, it's able to checkmate the activities of the ruling party, and it should be able to say, look, if we were in power, this is what we could have done better. I talk about simulated crisis within the PDP.
Yes.
And at the heart of it is an elective position. An elective position, a tenured position, and by virtue of the constitution of the PDP, which I have taken my time to look at, you know, since this crisis within the PDP started, as relates to the position of the national secretary. I just feel that there are people who are positioning themselves, their personal ambition override the general interest of the party. You know, you have different blocks within the PDP. You have the Atiku camp, you have the governor's camp, you have Bala Mohammed, you have Wike's camp. But many of them are not speaking the truth as a result of their personal interest. Anyanwu, we all know, you know, contested for the governorship position of Imo State. He never resigned. He handed over to his deputy. And by virtue of the constitution of the PDP, when he left, when he lost the election, he came back to resume his office, which he is not the first person to have done that, either within the PDP or other political parties. So there is now some people within the party who felt that, look, he should vacate that position because he went to contest for an elective position. You know, in every society, you are guided by rules, you are guided by law, and nobody has been able to state the provisions of the PDP constitution that makes it mandatory for him to step down from that position. So I just feel that it is interest. And by, you know, the next off-season election is Anambra. And from this, why this story generated interest yesterday is because the nomination of candidates for the Anambra gubernatorial election as submitted to INEC was signed by the national secretary of the PDP, who is Samuel Anyanwu himself. And later in the day, because of the faction within the PDP, another person who belongs to another faction within the PDP, you know, came out to say, no, that is not true. But the evidence out there shows that it is the truth, that Samuel Anyanwu is actually the authentic, as at today, the authentic national secretary of the People's Democratic Party. So when I talk about simulated crisis, people are trying to, instead of building a party to be strong towards confronting the challenges of the upcoming election, you now have forces within the party trying to destroy the party, which to me doesn't make sense. The interest of your party should supersede your personal interest. You should work for the interest of the party. And if, you know, based on the Supreme Court judgment, still on this same Anyanwu's issue,
right,
the stakeholders within the party should be able to come together and say, look, what's the way forward? Whatever problem we have as a party, you should be able to come together as a family and sort it out, rather than today we'll read one thing in the media, tomorrow we read another thing in the media, which doesn't augur well for the PDP itself, for the larger Nigerian society, and for our democracy.
Well, Dr. Austin, those are some very key points there, and I think that is an exhaustive conversation that has a lot to unpack. But let's move on to some of the other headlines that we have this morning. Can we just pull up the Vanguard, please? There's a special report on the front page that says how lives get wasted daily on Nigeria's highways of horror. Horrible federal roads in Cross River, over 150 people burnt to death, 100 vehicles wrecked in rivers, North's highways of frequent disasters and deaths, and lamentations in Southwest. Federal roads of frequent auto crashes in Southeast. FG doing its best to fix road infrastructure. That's by Umahi there. So what do you have to say about this, Dr. Austin? I believe we took a report earlier on that mentioned the lives of 3 children that were killed a few days ago, and
still on our roads.
Absolutely,
which have become death trap.
Yes,
you know, Nigeria. You know, when we were in elementary school, we talk about 3 or 4 modes of transportation. You see that you see that you travel by road, by air, right?
Yes.
By water.
Yes.
And of course, you travel by train. But if you look at all these other modes of transportation, the only one that is available in the Nigerian situation is you are restricted 90% of the time traveling by road, because air travel in Nigeria is not efficient and it's not affordable.
That's right.
Traveling by rail in Nigeria is basically non-existent, because Nigeria as a country is embarrassing. When you look at the statistics, the total number of rail track in Nigeria from pre-colonial, colonial, post-independence is just about 3,000 kilometers.
Wow.
Which is not enough for a country of over 200 million people.
Absolutely.
Not until not until the Jonathan Buhari administration added the Lagos Ibadan, then Abuja Kaduna rail track. Rail was practically non-developed in Nigeria. And of course, our waterways is equally a death trap. It's not. We have a national waterway agency, which of course we should be asking them what they are doing, because they are supposed to dredge our waterways to make it navigable in such a way that people can travel by water. But the same situation we have on our roads is what we have in our national waterway, where there are frequent boat mishap, and you hear the figure of people who perish, as a result of trying to travel by, these alternative means of transportation. So at the end of the day, everybody is restricted, as it were, to traveling by road. So the roads themselves, they're death trap. They are not good.
That's right.
They are not, even the vehicles plying the road, the condition of most of those vehicles, they are questionable. And that's why you have frequent accidents that has turned our road virtually into a death trap. Traveling by road in Nigeria is at your own risk. I think that's what the report is really looking at, the state of roads in Nigeria, which the federal government should look at. And, while paying attention to it, should equally develop other modes of transportation.
I think what contributes to these disasters that are frequent is also the fact that not enough people are actually skilled drivers. You have people who learn how to drive and
they just jump on the road.
Exactly.
The next day.
Exactly. And then we have so many factors: bad roads, the weather, cars that are dilapidated. They've been there for many years, and they have so many faults. But it's a very sad reality to see that this is actually a nationwide problem, but truly needs to be paid attention to. Let's take a look at the Daily Independent. We have not achieved Nigeria of our dreams yet. The writer says we all have roles to play to forge national unity. I believe this is almost linked to...
It's linked to the current state of the nation. Over 2 weeks ago, the outgoing managing director, chief executive of the African Development Bank, Akinwumi Adesina, made a statement. He was doing a comparative analysis between what obtained in Nigeria in the 60s and what currently obtained in terms of standard of living, state of the economy. And when you ask that basic question, is Nigeria of 1960, I think it should be a national debate, is Nigeria of 1960 not better, or is Nigeria of today better than the Nigeria of 1960?
Wow.
It depends on what you are looking at. But
right.
if you pay attention to the indices, you know, it raises a lot of questions about the state of the economy, the state of our political development, social cohesion, and a lot of that. Are we more, for instance, let's forget economy. Are we more united today as a country?
But how is that measured?
Than we were in 1960.
But how do you measure that? How can that be measured?
It can be measured. It can be measured. Because in the 60s, in the 60s, as a country, we didn't have these politics of ethnicity, religion, Boko Haram, ISWAP, Ansarudin, terrorists, unknown gunmen, you know, which is threatening the very fabric of our nation. In the 60s, when Nigeria gained political independence, there was hope. The economy was growing stratospherically, economically. People were happy. We were respected in the international community, you know, as the leader of one of a key leader in Africa.
That's true.
But what's the position of Nigeria today?
That's right.
You take it from the 60s to the 70s. Look at how Nigerians were respected. Look at our currency. Look at the state of our economy. Look at social cohesion. Nigeria, look at when we had the regional system of government, which many people are nostalgic about, and say, look, let's go back to regional form of government.
How it was.
The economy was growing. The regions were independent. We had the granite pyramids in the north. We had cocoa in the southwest. We have oil palm, you know, in the east. The economy had a basis. People were working and generally, you know, employed. The currency was strong. But what do we have today? Even among the political class, they were more focused on leaving a lasting legacy for the country. But the kind of political class we have today, can you compare to the kind of political class we had in post-independence Nigeria? These are the issues that we need as a country to look at. And it's not enough, you know, going back to part of the riders you went through, it's not enough. Like INEC, every election cycle we talk about electoral reform, you know, believing that we need a new electoral act to be able to conduct, you know, better election. But we find out that at every stage, the election before the next one is always getting worse. It's not about the electoral law. It is about the people. It's about the politicians who lacks ideology, who lacks the knowledge of the essence of democracy, who put self above the nation, who put personal interest beyond the interest of the people, who thrive on primordial instinct in their quest for political office, who debase themselves by playing this politics of ethnicity and religion, which has brought us to this, you know, sad state as a nation.
Well, thank you very much, Dr. Austin Maho, for those wonderful and very thought-provoking contributions for the newspaper review. Unfortunately, that's all we have time for here on Daybreak. I'm Yolanda Robert. Please do keep it here on Arise News. The morning show is next. Goodbye.